My name is Natalie Horner, and I'm 29. In Buffalo, snow is a language you learn before you're old enough to drive, how to read the sky, how to brake before a turn, how to slide without panicking. The night I brought home the lemon pie I'd baked past midnight, the sky was speaking in soft, patient syllables. I loaded my trunk with gifts, a bottle of Cabernet, and a sweater my mother once said made me look too office. I wore it anyway. Christmas Eve is not a thing you skip here. You go, even if something in the air has felt off for months, like a radio station that almost comes in but crackles on the words that matter most. The house looked the same in the snow. Wreath on the door, warm light pooled in the front window. Voices, music, the cinnamon and clove smell my mother believes can fix almost anything. I balanced 2 bags of presents on my hip and nudged the door open. Nat, my sister Grace called from the living room, half rising with a wave that looked like habit more than welcome. Brent, her fiancé of 8 months, gave me a nod over his shoulder as if I were a coworker late to a meeting. Want help with the table? I asked Mom. She glanced over, not unkind, just efficient. We're doing immediate family only this year, she said, the way you say the forecast. Nothing personal, just weather. I looked at the table. 6 places. Mom, Dad, Grace, Brent, Uncle Neil, and Karen. Immediate, apparently, meant new additions and extended limbs, just not me. No extra plate, no folding chair, no space carved from the corner like we used to do when the cousins came. A beat. 2. Then Grace crossed to me, her smile too quick. I didn't know This wasn't my idea. We can do our own thing tomorrow? Brunch? She didn't look like she meant it. I could hear the clink of cutlery behind her as Mom set down a plate with careful ceremony in front of Brent. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for the spare chair from the hall closet or smile like I'd misunderstood. I lifted the bags back into my arms, felt the straps burn into my palms, and turned toward the door. They let me go. The threshold breathed cold onto my cheeks as I stepped outside, the snow coming down in the same calm way it had an hour ago when I believed I had a seat. I walked to my car, put the gifts in the trunk, and sat there with my hands on the wheel, listening to Bing Crosby drift from a house I grew up in. Half my paycheck was in that trunk. A drill my dad had circled in a hardware flyer, a purse with a zipper my mom wouldn't have to wrestle, a novel Brent would totally love because I'd asked Grace his favorite authors. I thought of the grocery gift cards I'd sent when the electric bill ballooned, the quiet transfer I made to help Grace with her car when her hours got cut, the rent help for Mom and Dad's lake place. It hadn't felt like a burden at the time. Family is not supposed to be a burden. It's supposed to be ballast. I drove home through the snowfall, wipers ticking like a metronome. In my apartment, I set the pie on the counter. The apartment felt honest in a way the house hadn't in months. Small, quiet, entirely mine. Around midnight, I opened my laptop. The $600 monthly transfer to my parents. Paused. Grace's car loan auto pay I'd been covering since July. Canceled. Amazon Prime, which everyone used under my name, removed. Netflix, signed out of all devices. No announcement, no manifesto, just switches clicking to off like lights in an empty room. My phone buzzed and stilled. Evan, my boyfriend, had texted earlier from his parents' place in Rochester. Made it in one piece. Call me when you're home. I thumbed a reply I didn't send yet. Later. I'm okay. I wasn't sure what the truth was, and Evan deserved the part of me that could tell it. I slept as if dropped into a well. At 8:20 a.m., my phone lit up in a frantic strobe. 32 messages, all caps, from Mom and Grace. Then more, shorter ones from Dad, clipped like someone was dictating. I didn't open them, just watched the previews line up. Olivia, answer me now. Are you seriously doing this over one dinner? You're being cruel. Stop being cheap. Grace needs your help. We're family. The door knocked 10 minutes later. Not a neighborly knock. A knock that asks to be obeyed. I let it go on. It swung from pounding to doorbell to pounding again, as if trying every combination to pick a lock. I poured coffee, watched snow drift past the window. It occurred to me, absently, that I had become the only person in our family to respect a boundary, and I was the one under indictment for it. When I finally opened the door, Mom and Grace stood without coats, snow purling on their hair. They were not cold enough to be reasonable. What did you do? Mom asked, skipping hello, the way she'd skipped my place at the table. Why didn't the money go through? My grocery card got declined. Grace can't make her car payment. You canceled Prime. You're overreacting. I studied her like a stranger who looked like my mother. What do you think I'm reacting to? You weren't uninvited, she said. It was just a smaller dinner. Smaller, I said, with a plate for Brent. He's part of Grace's future, she said, arms crossing. We didn't think you'd make a big deal. Then she said the thing that rang like flatware dropped on tile. You have no husband, no kids, and you make good money. It's your responsibility to support this family while Grace is starting her life. Grace didn't contradict her. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Maybe she'd never had to. Something inside me rearranged itself with a soft click. A puzzle piece I'd been forcing for years slid into place and locked. They hadn't forgotten my chair. They'd reassigned it. I was the line item that made the rest of the table possible. I'm done, I said. Not dramatic, just finished. I hope Brent can carry what I've been carrying. I won't be your utility account anymore. They cycled through every tactic they'd ever used on me. In 5 minutes, we covered guilt, obligation, ruining the holiday. Don't bring bitterness into the new year. We're all under stress. Be the bigger person. I kept my voice even. I wanted to see if calm would hold. Evan's name flashed on my phone, Evan Pike, and then disappeared. I silenced it. This wasn't a three-way conversation. This was a ledger I had to close myself. You're choosing a fight, Mom said finally. I'm choosing a boundary, I said. If you hear it as a fight, that's on you. They didn't like that line. Most people who love to take from you also love to define the terms by which you refuse them. Natalie, Grace said, softening her voice the way people do when they want your yes without your self-respect. Don't make this ugly. It's already ugly, I said. I just stopped pretending it isn't. Eventually, they ran out of energy, or arguments, or both. Mom shifted the blame to the weather, to stress, to the economy. Grace tried a joke that died between us. I told them I had things to do. When they didn't move, I stepped back anyway, and the door found itself closing between us. The apartment was quiet again. The lemon pie still sat on the counter, bright and useless. I texted Evan. Long story. I'll call later. I'm okay. A beat. Then, I'm proud of you, he wrote back. You don't have to keep burning to keep other people warm. I stood by the window and watched the footsteps they left in the hall, fill with blown snow as the draft crept under the door. In the next room, my phone vibrated on the table, then quieted, then vibrated again. I let it. It wasn't over. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries rarely accept their loss without a campaign. But for once, I didn't hurry to make their discomfort easier to hold. Somewhere in the building, a radiator clanked. The coffee tasted honest. And if you'd asked me then what I felt, I would have told you the truth. Not triumph, not peace, just a clean, sudden space where a chair used to be. The next few days moved like slow ice, solid on the surface, but cracking underneath. I kept waiting for things to settle, for the storm of calls and texts to fade, but my phone never really went quiet. Every few hours, another message blinked through. You're being cruel. Grace can't sleep. Your father's upset. Family means sacrifice. Sacrifice. That was always the word they used when they meant me. By the third morning, I stopped checking notifications. I muted the group chat. I started my coffee before sunrise and opened my budgeting app like I was reading scripture. For the first time in years, every number there actually belonged to me. Still, silence has a way of echoing. When you grow up in a house that only calls when something's wrong, quiet can feel suspicious. I worked remotely that week. Spreadsheets, project meetings, polite small talk through my headset. I told my coworkers my family Christmas had been different. They laughed, said everyone's was. None of them knew what different really meant. That night, Evan called. He always waited until evening, when the distance between Buffalo and Rochester felt like a hallway, not a highway. Still holding the line? He asked softly. I think so, I said. They'll probably start rationing guilt soon. He chuckled. You sound lighter. I'm not sure that's the word. Just finished. Finished can be a good start, he said. I wanted to believe him, but part of me still expected someone to knock again. Not with anger this time, but with something worse. Pretend forgiveness. Instead, on Friday evening, the knock came sooner than I thought. The sound made my stomach tighten. 2 sharp hits, a pause, then 1 long, deliberate pound. Through the peephole. Mom, coat zipped this time. Grace, eyes tired. I opened the door halfway. Can we come in, Mom asked. It wasn't a question so much as an order shaped like one. I stepped aside, mostly because I didn't want my neighbors hearing this. Mom didn't sit. She paced, gloved hands twisting. This has gone far enough, Natalie. You're punishing your sister for something she didn't do. I blinked. You mean for a dinner I wasn't invited to? You were invited. It was just a small gathering, she said quickly. Grace stepped forward. Mom, maybe... Mom cut her off. We didn't mean anything by it. Brent's part of Grace's future. We just wanted to keep it intimate. The word made me laugh, a small, brittle sound. Intimate would have been a phone call explaining it, not a plate where mine used to be. Mom exhaled through her nose. You always take things so personally. You think everything's about you. That was the sentence that had followed me since childhood. Whenever I asked why I was left out, or why Grace got the new things, or why I was the one expected to help with bills, you think everything's about you. I looked at her and for the first time really saw how she had built a system around that sentence. If everything was about me, then nothing they did could be called wrong. Just my reaction. Mom, I said quietly, you're right about one thing. This is personal. It's my money, my peace, and my limit. Grace flinched, like the word limit stung. Mom's tone sharpened. Don't twist this into some independence crusade. You make good money, Natalie. You have no husband, no kids. It's natural you help out. That's how families survive. Her words landed in me like an equation I'd already solved. If I have no husband, then I have no family. If I have no family, then I owe this one more. They didn't want me included. They wanted me useful. You talk about survival, I said, but I'm the only one who's been treading water while the rest of you stand on my shoulders. Grace's eyes shimmered. You're twisting it, Nat. It's not like that. You just have more stability. Because I built it, I snapped, then softer. Because no one ever built it for me. A beat of silence stretched between us. Then Mom said the line I'll never forget. You wouldn't let us help even if we tried. It was such a perfect lie, polished by years of repetition, that for a moment I admired the craftsmanship. You never offered, I said. You just handed me a bill and called it love. Mom's mouth pressed thin. You'll regret this. One day you'll need us. I smiled faintly. If that day comes, I hope you answer the door. Grace started crying then. Quiet, embarrassed tears. She whispered something about not meaning it that way and this isn't who we are. But I'd heard enough of who they were on Christmas Eve. I didn't need subtitles. I walked to the door and opened it wide. I think that's all for tonight. Mom hesitated, then brushed past me, muttering about pride and attitude. Grace followed, pausing on the threshold. Nat, she said softly, I'll call you tomorrow. You won't, I said, not cruel, just certain. They left. The hallway light flickered once, then steadied. When the door clicked shut, I leaned my forehead against it and breathed. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline, the kind that comes when you finally stop performing and start protecting yourself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the lemon pie still on the counter, untouched. The apartment smelled faintly of sugar and smoke from my coffee earlier. I thought about what Mom said, about responsibility, about my good money. And I realized this had never been about Christmas. It was about control. Every thank you they never said had been replaced by expectation. Every favor I did became invisible the moment it was done. I wrote it all down, not out of spite, but out of clarity. March, Grace's rent top-up, $400. May, utilities for Mom and Dad, $180 July. Car loan payment, $620. August, groceries, $250 September. Lake house repairs, $900. A year's worth of love, disguised as transactions. By 2 a.m., my list was done. I closed the notebook, slid it into my desk drawer, and whispered to myself, no more unpaid debts of the heart. When I finally slept, I dreamed of snow, endless, clean, and quiet. It was January 3rd when it came, the message that turned silence into proof. The holidays had passed like a half-erased sentence. No calls, no cards, no apology. My apartment was still draped with the faint smell of cinnamon and smoke from the candles I'd burned through the long nights. The lemon pie had gone stale on the counter, then in the trash. For the first time, I didn't feel the pull to fix things. I went to work. I came home. I learned the sound of peace. Quiet, steady, uneventful. That morning, as I was sorting laundry, my phone buzzed with a notification. Brent Callahan. My stomach tightened. Grace's fiancé. No greeting, no explanation, just a single message. I don't know if I should be sending this, but you deserve to hear it. Attached was one audio file. I stared at it for a long minute. My first instinct was to delete it. Nothing good ever comes labeled, "You deserve to hear it." But curiosity, or maybe the leftover hope that people could surprise me, made my thumb press play. At first, all I heard was background noise, the faint scrape of forks against plates, glasses clinking, low Christmas music. Then came the voices, familiar, unmistakable. Uncle Neil, "So, how's the martyr doing?" Mom, laughing, probably sulking in her apartment like we ruined her wedding day. Grace, "She'll get over it. She always does. She just needs to play the victim for a few weeks." Someone chuckled. Then Dad's voice, quieter, almost weary. "At least now we can have a holiday without one of her lectures." Another voice joined. Karen, Uncle Neil's girlfriend. Something about her always trying to prove she's better, dressing like she's at a job interview, giving gifts like she's being graded. Laughter, familiar, cruel. Then Brent's voice, uneasy, cutting through. "You know she can probably hear all of this through the door, right?" Silence. Forks paused midair. The recording ended. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't even move. I just sat there, feeling the cold knot in my stomach grow heavier, colder, quieter. Because that was the moment it hit me. The realization that their cruelty wasn't new. It was practiced. It was comfortable. They didn't even have to work at it. Another message came through seconds later. "I'm sorry," Brent wrote. "I didn't know they talked about you like that. I recorded it because it felt wrong. I told Grace afterward it was messed up. We argued. I moved into the house after New Year's. It's been awkward." I stared at his words. For a man who had watched it happen, awkward was a generous description. I didn't reply. Not that night. Maybe not out of pride, but because I didn't know which part hurt more. That my family had mocked me behind my back, or that I'd expected better from people who'd already shown me who they were. Still, something inside me shifted again. A quiet click, like a door finally locking from the inside. Over the next few days, I started clearing the remnants of shared life from my devices. Removed them as emergency contacts. Blocked them on my calendar sharing. Deleted family access from Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, all the quiet conveniences they'd used through my name. Changed every password I owned. It wasn't anger, it was surgery. Removing infection before it spread again. Evan called that night. "You sound different," he said. "I am," I said. "Brent sent me something." "The fiancé?" "Yeah," I paused. It was a recording. I didn't give details. Evan didn't push. "Do you want me to come up?" he asked softly. "No," I said. "I need to sit with this by myself. If you come, I'll start pretending I'm fine." He hesitated. "Okay, but you don't have to prove strength by isolating, Nat." "I'm not isolating," I said. "I'm just detoxing." After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. I replayed the recording once more, just to be sure I hadn't exaggerated it in my head. But no, it was exactly what it was. Every cruel word as crisp as broken glass. Later that week, Grace texted me for the first time since Christmas. Not an apology, not even a question, just, "Hey, can you turn the rent payments back on? We're a little behind." No greeting, no acknowledgement, just a request like I was her HR department. I stared at the message for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I closed the app and deleted the thread. That was the last message I ever got from her. Days passed quietly. I started cooking again, cleaning, taking walks in the snow with no music in my ears. I noticed how blue the sky could look over the frozen lake. For the first time in months, my heartbeat didn't sync to someone else's crisis. But silence never lasts long in a family that feeds on reaction. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed again. This time a voicemail from Dad. His voice was shaking. "Nat, something happened. The kitchen's gone. Fire started near the stove. They stopped it before it spread, but it's bad. We don't know who else to ask. Just help us get through the month, please." He sounded desperate, not angry this time, desperate. I didn't reply right away. I let the message sit overnight while snow gathered on my window ledge. The next morning, I opened my phone again. Not to call him, but to check Grace's social media. Her latest post, a photo of her holding a newborn and a set of car keys. Caption, "New year, new start." A used Jeep, a new baby, a burned kitchen, and a sister who still thought I'd fund her version of starting over. I picked up my keys, not out of guilt, not out of nostalgia, just to see. The house looked smaller under the snow. Somehow even the paint seemed tired, edges gray where white used to be. I parked at the end of the driveway, letting the engine idle a moment longer than necessary. Part of me expected the door to stay closed, to make this easier. But then it opened. Mom stood there, bundled in an oversized sweater that used to be mine. Her face shifted between relief and control, like she couldn't decide which one to land on. "Natalie," she said, voice tight with practiced composure. "You came." I nodded, not trusting words yet. Inside, the smell hit first. Smoke, ash, and something sharp, like melted plastic. The kitchen was worse than I'd imagined. Cabinets blistered, tiles blackened, a dark bloom spreading up the wall. Someone had tried to scrub it, but smoke stains don't scrub off that easily. Mom started talking before I could ask anything. It was the wiring behind the stove. Grace had just stepped out with the baby. If she'd been home... "Where is she?" I asked. "Upstairs," she said quickly, eyes darting toward the stairs, trying to keep the baby asleep. As if on cue, I heard faint footsteps and then saw Grace, barefoot, wearing one of my old hoodies, the blue one I'd left years ago. It hung loose around her shoulders. She froze halfway down the stairs. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey," I answered. The word felt like a foreign language. Mom stepped between us. "Insurance is being difficult," she said, "and you know how these things go. Temporary housing, contractors. We just need a little help to get through the month." There it was. Not "thank you for coming." Not "we're safe." Just the request. It always came dressed in urgency, never in gratitude. I looked around the kitchen. "You should probably have the wiring checked through the whole house," I said. "If one section burned, the rest might..." Mom interrupted. "We will. We just don't have the funds right now." She waited, expectant. Grace stayed silent, eyes fixed on the floor. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Mom's face softened, misreading the gesture as surrender. When she opened it, her expression faltered. Inside was a single $50 bill. "What's this supposed to be?" she asked, confused. "That," I said, "is what my spot at the table was worth." The silence that followed felt heavier than smoke. Grace's eyes widened. "Nat, that's not fair." "Fair?" I said, voice low. "You sat at a table where they laughed about me. You called it small, intimate, family only. And now you want me to pay to fix the walls you scorched?" Mom's tone sharpened. "You're being spiteful." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being consistent." I set the envelope on the counter, right next to a pile of half-burned recipe cards, and turned to leave. Grace called after me. "You don't have to be like this." I paused at the door. "Like what?" "Cold." I turned. "You called me cold when I stopped paying for your heat bill, too." Her mouth opened, then closed. I stepped outside into the cold afternoon. Snowflakes stuck to my eyelashes. The house behind me looked smaller still. Not because it had changed, but because I finally saw it without illusion. I didn't look back. When I got home, I poured myself tea and watched the snow through the window until dusk. The city lights reflected faintly off the frost, each one a tiny boundary holding its shape. My phone buzzed with a new message. "Mom." I didn't open it. Then another from Dad. "Please, Nat, don't do this. It's family." I turned the phone face down. Family, I thought, shouldn't sound like a demand. Later that night, Evan called. "Did you go?" he asked. "I did." "And?" "They're fine," I said. "The kitchen's not, but they will be." "Did they say thank you?" I laughed softly. "They got $50. That's something." He didn't push, just said, "You sound steady, that's good." I stared at the untouched tea cooling in my hands. "Steady feels strange," I said, "like I'm still waiting for the guilt to catch up." "It won't," he said. "Not if you stop opening the door for it." That night, I blocked all three of them, Mom, Dad, and Grace. Not out of anger this time, just to stop the bleeding. The next morning, the silence was absolute. No pings, no missed calls, no "we're disappointed in you" voicemails. Just quiet. The kind that didn't accuse or demand. For the first time in years, my phone was mine. I slept like someone who'd finally left a burning building. But peace doesn't last long in families that run on debt. And somewhere out there, a new bill was already being written in my name. It was a Friday night in early February when the past came knocking again, not with texts or guilt, but with something heavier. The knock was soft, polite even, but persistent. I hesitated before checking the peephole. Brent stood there, snow on his jacket, a duffel bag at his feet. I opened the door just enough to see his face. He looked exhausted, like someone who had stopped pretending. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He stood awkwardly near the doorway, gripping the strap of his bag. "I moved out this morning," he said. "Your parents' house. I can't do it anymore." I folded my arms. "That makes two of us." He gave a weak smile. "Grace said you'd say that." I stayed silent. Brent exhaled and dropped the duffel by his feet. You were right about them, Natalie. The way they talk, the way they use people. I thought I could handle it, but living there, it changes you. The air feels heavy. Grace doesn't even look me in the eye anymore. She just complains about the kitchen, about money, about me. I leaned against the counter, studying him. Why are you telling me this? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. Because you need to see this. Inside were receipts, printed statements. My name was on every one of them. I flipped through them slowly, my heartbeat growing louder with each page. Restaurant charges, gas stations, hotel rooms, furniture, spa trips, even a baby stroller from an upscale boutique. Each line was linked to a credit card I'd never opened. At the bottom of the stack, total balance, $8,043.22. I looked up. You're joking. Brent shook his head. Grace opened the account under your name, said you'd understand, said you'd never press charges because you're family. My stomach twisted. She said that? He nodded. I asked her what she meant, and she laughed. Said, Nat knows I need help. She's fine. She'll forgive me like always. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I just stared at the receipts, my own name printed neatly beside charges I'd never made. Why bring this to me? I finally asked. Because it's wrong, Brent said simply, and because I couldn't stay there pretending anymore. He sat down on the edge of the couch, rubbing his hands together. She'll tell everyone I made you do this. She already blames me for the recording, but I figured you'd rather know the truth than keep being their safety net. I looked at him, this man who'd once been the uninvited guest at a table that used to be mine, and for the first time I saw guilt, not arrogance. I appreciate it, I said quietly, even if it's late. He nodded. Better late than never. When he left, the envelope stayed in my hands like evidence and betrayal rolled into one. That night, I sat at my desk, spread the receipts out in rows, and took photos of each one. Then I opened my laptop and started making calls. First to the credit card company, then to a lawyer. The process was cold and mechanical. Identity theft, verification forms, affidavits. But underneath the paperwork, something inside me was trembling. Not with anger, but with disbelief that even now, Grace had found a new way to take what wasn't hers. By Monday, the account was frozen. The representative on the phone sighed softly. Sibling cases aren't rare, she said. They're just always sad. I almost laughed. That's one word for it. 2 days later, the messages started. Grace. Nat, you don't understand. I was desperate. Then another. I was going to tell you. Then. It's just a misunderstanding. You don't have to make it worse. A misunderstanding doesn't cost $8,000. I didn't reply. The next day, a voicemail came from Mom. Her tone was sharp, cutting through static. We don't call the police on family, Natalie. Whatever your sister did, you handle it privately. This isn't right. And there it was again. The family rule that had kept every wrong thing invisible. You don't make trouble. You don't call it theft. You call it help. But help isn't taking someone's name. Help isn't laughing while you drain them. For the first time, I realized they didn't care what Grace did. They only cared that I stopped fixing it. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and let her handle it. When the police contacted Grace, the calls and texts doubled. First pleading, then furious, then silence. Brent reached out again that Friday. She's telling everyone I made you press charges, he said. Of course she is, I said. He hesitated. I'm sorry for everything. For not standing up sooner. For being part of it. I looked at him. You recorded that dinner when no one else would. You gave me the proof. You told me the truth. That's enough. He nodded slowly. They don't realize how much strength it takes to walk away. I do, I said, because I'm still learning. He left quietly after that, duffel still at his side. By the end of February, the paperwork was nearly done. The lawyer said my name would be cleared within the month. Each day, I deleted another thread of messages, another contact, another tie. It wasn't revenge, it was recovery. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for saving myself. March arrived quietly, the snow thinning into slush, the streets wet with the kind of thaw that makes everything smell like endings. I'd stopped checking my phone for messages by then. The silence had become routine, not lonely. The lawyer called on a Wednesday afternoon. It's done, she said. The account's closed. Your name's been cleared. $8,000. Weeks of calls. Months of exhaustion. All erased by a few digital signatures and an apology email from the bank that said, we appreciate your patience. When I hung up, I just sat there for a while. The room felt different, lighter somehow, like I'd been holding my breath for years without realizing it. I poured myself coffee and stood by the window. The street outside was bright, almost aggressively ordinary. A delivery truck, a kid on a scooter, a couple arguing about directions. Life going on, indifferent. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the urge to fix anything. That night, Evan called. "You sound calm," he said. "I guess I am," I replied. "The lawyer called. It's over." "I'm proud of you," he said. "You didn't let them rewrite the story." I smiled faintly. "They'll still try, but I've changed the locks." We talked for a while, about work, about maybe taking a weekend trip when spring came. He told me about his sister's engagement, and I realized I could listen to someone else's family story without flinching. After we hung up, I lit a candle and cleaned the apartment. Not because it needed it, but because I finally had the energy to. Then my phone buzzed. One new voicemail. Dad. For a long time, I just stared at the screen. Every instinct told me to delete it. But something, curiosity, maybe closure, made me press play. "Hey, Nat, it's Dad. I don't know if you'll listen to this, but I need to say it anyway. You were right. We treated you like a safety net, like someone who'd always be there to patch things up. We told ourselves it was love, but it wasn't. It was convenience. Your mom's not ready to admit it yet. Grace definitely isn't. But I see it now. The house feels different without you. Quiet, but not in a good way. We built a family that only made noise when it needed something. I just hope someday you'll talk to us again. Not for money, just to talk." "I'm sorry, sweetheart." His voice cracked on that last word. Sweetheart. It had been years since I'd heard him call me that. I didn't cry, but something in my chest softened, like the first drip of snow melting off a roof. I saved the voicemail, not because I wanted to listen to it again, but because it felt like the right kind of ending, imperfect, honest, unfinished. The next morning, sunlight cut across the kitchen counter. The lemon pie dish still sat in the sink, the last trace of that night months ago. I washed it clean and placed it back in the cupboard. Then I opened my notebook, the one where I'd written every dollar I'd ever given, every transfer, every favor. On the last page, I wrote a single line. "The debt is paid." I closed it, slid it into the drawer, and exhaled. Outside, the snow was finally gone. I grabbed my coat, stepped out into the pale March light, and walked toward a future that didn't owe me an apology to exist. Because the truth was simple. Family can break you, but it can also teach you what not to become. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.